Hello, I'm Anna, and I've lived much of my life by myself. When I was 5 years old, my parents were killed in a car accident. My grandmother took it upon herself to raise me. Being with her was like having an anchor, a compass, and a family. My then fiancé Mark gave me the illusion that I had found a new family when she died away just before my wedding. 2 years have passed since our wedding, and we are still residing in the lovely 2-story townhouse that I rented for our wedding. We were married there, so it seemed sense to stay there because of the location. After Mark moved his belongings in, I thought we had finally found the ideal arrangement. As an assistant editor-in-chief at a big publishing business, I was able to juggle my career and our family life well, since I worked from home. In this house, there's something special, you know? Sprawled out on our couch after dinner, Mark would frequently remark, "Guests from far and wide can fit in there. This place is perfect for my folks." If he brought this up, I would smile anxiously. "Yeah, maybe," I would respond, attempting to conceal my unease. I never told Mark how anxious I was about having house guests. When his sister Sarah unexpectedly arrived up with her 2 elementary-aged children, Tommy and Lisa, everything changed. As I swung open the door, I beheld their figures, bags slung over their shoulders. "Oh my, come on," Sarah shouted as she pushed by me and into the home. The kids would benefit from spending time with their uncle, you know, from a male perspective and everything. Wilder kids, Tommy and Lisa, sprinted muddy-shod to our spotless living room. I froze. Beaming with delight, Mark materialized behind me. "Jen, you have to admit this is quite awesome. Sarah can handle the workplace while the kids stay in the guest room." The workplace? The words escaped my lips painfully. However, I do my job there. "You can work anywhere, honey," he remarked, already lugging their bags upstairs. "It's only for the summer break." On that first night, I slept through Sarah's children arguing over the TV remote and her complaints over the food I had prepared. Little did I know that this would only be the beginning of the mayhem downstairs. Little did I realize that this would be the first of many occurrences that would eventually cause my marriage to fall apart. The weeks that followed were the worst. The children of Sarah were utterly unruly. Even though I had edited several works for young adults about problematic teens, I had never witnessed children act in such a way. "Excuse me, you dimwit." Tommy, whose hands were smeared in what I assumed was merely dirt, would scold me from across the breakfast table. I would like pancakes. Try to talk him out of it. "Hi, I'm Anna, or Aunt Jen, and I'd like you to wash your hands before I introduce myself." Lisa would interject with an insincere, "Whatever, dummy," before purposefully dropping her orange drink on the floor. "You aren't truly family, so we don't have to listen to you," Mom explains. "Kids will be kids, or they're just expressing themselves," would be Sarah's responses whenever I looked at her, but she would instead sit there fiddling with her phone, and I would turn to her for correction. Sarah stormed into my living room office where I had set up shop one especially hectic morning, interrupting my efforts to meet an important business deadline. She made an announcement about the children's lunch as if I were her personal chef, something devoid of sugar and organic, perhaps some handmade juice and gluten-free sandwich options. "Sarah, I am facing a critical deadline," I said. She quickly cut in with an exclamation point and a rolling eye. "All you do is type away at your computer at home. Compared to being a mother, that isn't really effort." My days seemed to stretch on interminably as I juggled cooking, cleaning, and attempting to finish off my work assignments. Every day, the kids would destroy their rooms, hurl food during meals, and wipe their dirty hands on the walls. And the worst thing? It was as if Mark had no idea what was going on. It seemed like the school holidays went on forever, but they finally came to an end. I separated Mark from Sarah and the kids the morning they left to have a serious talk. "Mark, we have to discuss what transpired," I said, my energy dwindling from the turmoil. "I don't understand. Having them here was fantastic, he responded, sounding truly perplexed. Absolutely not. She did nothing to assist. The children of your sister were unbelievably rude, and I was unable to perform a single task. Never invite anyone else without first talking to me. Nodding, Mark appeared surprised. Sure, sweetheart. Next time, I will make sure to consult with you beforehand. I dedicated the following weeks to repairing our house and my mental health. My job deadlines had accumulated to a dangerous level, and the walls needed repainting. The furniture also needed a thorough cleaning. While I was thinking about this, a key detail of our lease agreement came to mind. I should mention that our landlord is really strict about guests. I stated one evening to Mark, there are particular provisions regarding it in the agreement. With an air of disdain, he waved his hand. Put that out of your mind. I propose we simply place the lease in my name. In that case, you won't have anything to worry about. I kept paying the rent out of my own account as normal, but the next day we changed the lease to his name. By the end of the 6th month, everything had settled back to normal, in my mind at least. During my Tuesday morning work catch-up, I overheard Mark's enthusiastic voice coming from the kitchen. Our home is always a welcome place for you, Mom. We have lots of space. The master bedroom is yours to enjoy. We'll move downstairs to the guest room. My heart sank. I hurried to the kitchen in the nick of time to overhear his mom complaining about the water going out and the need for sewer repairs. As I pulled on his sleeve and whispered an urgent request to Mark, "Can we talk about this first?" With his palm, he shielded the phone. "As soon as their plumbing is fixed, Mom and Dad will need us somewhere to stay." "Just what are we going to discuss?" Our first serious argument in months occurred that night. "You said you would, Mark. You said we would talk about this during our appointment." He asked angrily, "Jen, what do you want me to do?" Before becoming angry, "Their names are my parents. Without flowing water, I am unable to abandon them. Put yourself last." My in-laws showed up the following morning armed with enough supplies to last through the end of the world. My in-law mom, Linda, repositioned my kitchen cupboards, scoffed at the cleaning supplies I used, and pointed out the accumulation of dust on the windowsills in the span of a few hours. "When you're through with whatever it is you're doing on that computer, make us dinner," she yelled out from the living room where she was guiding her husband, Bob, on furniture placement. "Not one of those meaningless salads you whip up." My jaw was clenched. "Linda, I am currently employed. Time is of the essence." "Working." She glanced at Bob and chuckled. "Having a day off isn't work. As for the meal itself," time seemed to pass in a blur. I would attempt to compose emails as Linda hovered over me, offering constructive criticism on my posture. While she insisted that I do the laundry correctly, I was proofreading manuscripts. It seems that I have been folding sheets incorrectly for all of my adult years. One night I begged Mark, "Please, I need your assistance. The amount of information is overwhelming." "You're right," he said, and I had a brief wave of comfort. I should take some time off work. I grinned, appreciative, until he interjected, "My dad and I are considering going fishing. Have some quality time together as a family." A fishing trip. It sounded unbelievable to me. That's not what I meant. Still, he was as giddy as a Christmas child as he began to gather his belongings. I was left alone with Linda when he and Bob departed the following morning for their bonding adventure. She put her hands on her hips and said, "Well, now that you're not preoccupied with that computer job of yours, we can finally get this house properly organized." The door shut behind them. There were 3 critical emails from my boss sitting unanswered on my laptop when I glanced at Linda's resolute countenance. Something had changed in my marriage at that very instant, and it wasn't a good thing. The doorbell rang the very next day that Mark and his father departed for their fishing vacation, and I felt things couldn't possibly be worse. Sarah was standing there with Tommy and Lisa, encircled by an even greater amount of baggage than the last time I had opened it. she shouted, surprise, as she pushed by me, carrying her children behind her. The grandkids had been wailing for their caretakers. We just couldn't resist. I remained frozen in place at the entrance, unable to comprehend the events unfolding before me. Squealing with joy, Linda materialized behind me. My babies. The kids were embraced by her. My lovely Sarah, you make it in the nick of time. Anna was just going to begin making supper. My publishing team and I were ready to embark on a crucial video session, and I had no intention of starting supper. However, that was disregarded. Actually, I informed myself. I have an important work meeting. Always with the excuses, Sarah scoffed. Mom told me you just sit at that computer all day pretending to work. What followed was a period of excruciating agony. I was stymied in a house of mayhem as Mark and Bob went fishing. The children went ballistic as they raced through each area, destroying everything in their path. In her spare time, Sarah would video chat with her pals and gripe about my food. Linda was always finding fault with me. No one did anything to assist, but everyone had an opinion about how little I was doing. I was prepared for an in-depth discussion when Mark and his dad got back from their fishing excursion 5 days later. In my mind, I had practiced being stern but fair while also describing how hopeless the situation had grown. Mark rushed gleefully through the door before I could utter a word. Isn't this amazing? He embraced the mayhem in our once tranquil home with open arms. Every member of the family here. There ought to be more of this. The room spun around me, more often. Yeah, he repeated with a smile. While out on the water with Dad, I was telling him, you know what would be fantastic? If we could all just hang together for a bit and act like a family. I had barely finished cleaning the floor when the kids sprinted by us, dragging mud with them. From upstairs, Sarah made a ruckus about how she needed new towels. It was almost time for dinner when Linda showed up to remind me. Mark, I choked out, can we talk privately later? He pushed me away and said, Honey, Dad is showing everyone the pictures from our trip. All night long, I listened to the mayhem above from our small guest room. His parents had moved into our bedroom, so now it creaked with every sound. Even though it was late, Sarah's children were still playing. Once again, someone was utilizing the microwave. My employer had sent me an email again, and this time it said, Second missed deadline this week. I was taken aback. A conversation is in order. A horror has taken over my life. Strangers treated me like a housekeeper. My children wrecked everything they touched, and my husband either couldn't or wouldn't look. I got up bright and early the following day, intent on doing my tasks before everyone else. My home office had become my last refuge from the mayhem around me, so I began to fortify it, but my spirits plummeted the moment I opened the door. Tommy and Lisa were lying on the floor, encircled by construction paper, gluing what appeared to be half of the garden's dirt, as Sarah sat at my desk with my laptop open before her. Sarah spoke the words, Oh, good, you're up, but she paid me no mind. Tomorrow is the deadline day for the student's school project. Your laptop is being used for research purposes. That's my laptop for work, I said, attempting to modulate my voice. I have deadlines. Stop being so egotistical, Sarah interrupted me. This will help them learn. No need to worry about that small typing task for now. Mark was rummaging through his work briefcase when I discovered him in the kitchen. Mark, I set up. My workplace is under their control. My laptop is being used by them. No way am I going to be able to work. Not now, Jen, he said as he hurried past me, his eyes glued to his watch. My meeting is going to be delayed because of me. Can we just use the same laptop? The children's school needs it. I went to the restroom because I felt lightheaded. I need to take a shower so I can clear my head. I was on the verge of throwing up as I opened the door to the restroom. Mud and grime were spilling out of the toilet. Through the chaos, footprints traced over the ceramic surface. The wall was adorned with handprints. Oh yeah, Lisa said from behind me, we needed a place to combine the dirt for our idea. Tommy assured me that the toilet would be fine because it already has water in it. Standing there, I gazed at the devastation. In another room of the home, I overheard Sarah shrieking at the children to go fetch more materials for their project and Linda groaning about their lunch arrangements. Worryingly, the toilet gurgled. A part of me suddenly cracked. I swept the floor of the restroom without uttering a word. With each motion of the mop and wall scrub, my marriage seemed to be crumbling around me. After I was through, I walked to our bedroom, which was now the guest room, and took stock of my life. I hung around till Mark departed for work the following morning. After counting to 60, I proceeded with measured efficiency as I heard his car leave the driveway. In a little bag, I tucked away my clothing, personal hygiene items, and phone charger. I was able to retrieve my laptop from the office while Sarah was in the kitchen nitpicking about the breakfast I had neglected to make, which was the only item I truly required. As I quietly exited the front door, not a soul paid any attention. No one came over to inquire about my whereabouts. The motel I stayed at wasn't exactly 5-star, but it provided the serenity, seclusion, and lack of noise that my home had lost. I could finally hear my own thoughts after what felt like weeks. I got some work done, had the longest shower ever, and ordered room service. I was worried that my phone might overflow with messages. I knew Mark would notice that I disappeared. No doubt he would be concerned. Someone, somewhere, would be wondering what happened to the housekeeper and cook who suddenly vanished. However, my phone stayed silent as the hours passed. Nobody cared about my whereabouts or why I had disappeared. There were no unanswered calls, texts, or desperate messages. The 3 days of radio quiet finally convinced me to return home. Reason being, I required their answers rather than missing them. I could hear music and laughter coming from outside as I walked up to our front door. I felt like I was hit in the stomach when I went into here. There was a wild celebration going on. There were dozens of strangers in our living room. Dishes of food covered every surface, and streamers dangled from the ceiling. I slipped inside the crowd unnoticed. In the center of the room, I saw Mark and Sarah dancing and laughing. They were drinking and talking like they owned the place, and there were more relatives I'd never met spread out on our furniture. Like a ghost, I slipped through the celebration and ended very close to the kitchen. When I heard them, that was it. And the best part is, my mother-in-law was relating to an unidentified woman. We didn't have to spend a dime on hotels or restaurants. We simply needed a change of scenery. Our house required absolutely no maintenance. The lady let out a laugh. How ingenious. Plus, you ended up with a free housewife as well. Though she isn't very good at being a housewife. That Anna. Yes, that Anna. Linda said with a bitter tone of voice, constantly griping about her job. Are you kidding me? Just 3 days earlier, she truly fled away. Not that her cuisine is missed by anyone. Laughter erupted from them. In the same way that their comments struck me like a punch, I stood motionless. Everything had been an elaborate hoax. The malfunctioning sewage system, the critical repairs, created so they could take a free vacation on me. A part of me suddenly cracked. Mark was still carefreely dancing and drinking when I squeezed through the throng to find him. As I took hold of his arm, I proclaimed, "We need to talk. Now." As if he were irritated that I was taking him away from his enjoyment, he trailed behind me down the corridor. Your mom just said that their house was always in perfect repair. I whispered, my voice quivering. That was all they wanted. A free spot to sleep. Are you familiar with this? I could feel our marriage slipping away the moment he shrugged. Because what if I did? He asked. They are cousins. They required some time away. Time off. It was me who served them food and cleaned up after them as they belittled me and seized control of my house. Did you realize that was all falsehood? So dramatic, he said with a smirk. You don't understand because you're an orphan. The word orphan smacked me in the face. My mind raced with images. My parents' death in a car crash when I was 5 years old, my grandmother's role as my sole breadwinner, and the empty chair she held during our wedding. That's right, he went on, his voice severely hurtful. All you are is an isolated misfit who has no concept of what it's like to be part of a genuine, loving family. Perhaps your selfishness would diminish if you had one. Even though I was fighting back tears, I would not allow them to fall. I silently made my way to our former bedroom and retrieved my possessions. On the other side of me, the celebration went on as usual. Even Mark didn't attempt to stop me. My phone rang just as I was getting comfortable in my hotel room, and I had just begun looking for an apartment online. I felt my gut tighten as the landlord's number flashed across my screen. When Mr. Peterson said, "Anna," his voice grew tense. "I've been receiving numerous complaints from the neighbors about your property." "It was my former property," I told him. "I am no longer a resident there. Mark Thompson, my husband, received the lease, don't you remember?" The line was marked by a prolonged pause. "Yes, well, the neighbors are reporting loud parties, excessive noise at all hours, children running wild in the common areas, and multiple unauthorized residents." I know it sounds awful, but like I mentioned before, it's no longer my responsibility, I said, maintaining my voice neutral. An audible sigh from Mr. Peterson. "The most severe actions permitted by the lease agreement will be taken, and I want you to be aware of that. You were an excellent tenant for a long time, and I'm simply contacting you out of the goodness of my heart." "I appreciate the heads up," said I, "but you'll need to discuss this with Mark." I felt a burden lifted off my shoulders once we hung up. For once, I decided not to warn Mark about the call. I wanted him to face the music for his decisions. Across town, I discovered a beautiful apartment with one bedroom in a peaceful building. Living below, my landlady was a retired educator who was grateful for my ability to conduct my job from the comfort of my own home. "It's good to have someone around during the day," stated the woman. After weeks of being roused from my slumber by late-night snacking and early morning mayhem, I finally managed to get a full night's sleep. Then, after I had settled into a calm routine for 2 weeks, Mark summoned me. "Jen, we're in deep trouble," he said in a rush, cutting me off before I could respond. "Today, Peterson arrived bearing a mountain of paperwork. He's asking for 2 months' rent in addition to some absurd fee." Allowing him to go on, I persisted in penning my email. "Did you realize that having parties or overnight visitors is against the lease? Who told you that I should know?" I said, "I did tell you," in a calm. "A number of times. You were unwilling to pay attention." "Well, I didn't read the whole thing when we transferred it," said the man. "Are you able to speak with Peterson, please? Your presence was appreciated by him. May I ask you to explain?" "Explain what?" Someone interrupted him, and I ended it. "The whole extended family squatters into a rental house without anybody's okay. Did you know that you've been throwing parties and making your neighbors mad? That you disregarded all of my warnings regarding the lease agreement? Desperately, the neighbors contacted the police last night," he continued. "For making too much noise, Mom and Dad were fined. The children of Sarah were causing a disturbance at midnight while they were running amok in the building. Jen, we are able to rely on you. I have faith in your abilities to deal with this." I recalled the many occasions when I had taken charge and cleaned up there, both actual and metaphorical, messes. "No," I replied plainly. "What do you mean, no?" "No, I am being strictly literal. Remember that you have a large, loving family there to support you. Because I am an orphan living on my own, I will never comprehend the true family you described. Farewell, Mark." In the midst of our plea, I hung up, turned off my phone, and resumed my job. I grinned after what felt like an eternity. Karma can be quite self-sufficient at times. My phone rang again the day following Mark's frantic call on the fines. As soon as his name appeared on the screen, I nearly chose not to respond. Whatever he said, though, I felt compelled to listen. "They're gone," he declared without qualification. "A whole family, including Mom, Dad, Sarah, and the kids. Jumps ship. Jen, go home. Returning to the previous state is an option." It was the suggestion that nearly made me chuckle. Go back. It was as if the last few months could be wiped off a wall with a crayon. I remarked, "There's no going back, Mark." "Please," he whispered, barely audible. "Peterson's demands are quite substantial. I was wondering if we might divide the fine and the additional rent in half. Without help, I simply cannot afford it." On this occasion, I actually laughed, a sound so piercing and sour that it astonished even me. "Oh, so you're saying you'd like a fair distribution now? I was the one who cooked and cleaned for your whole family. Where was this sense of equity? When did they seize control of my workplace, my house, and my life? But what about your real close-knit family?" I spoke up. "With any luck, they will assist you with the payment. Remember that I'm just an isolated orphan who doesn't know what it is to have family." I found out about Mark's eviction from Peterson through our common friend Amy a week after that. According to what she told me, he had brought his belongings to his parents' house, but they had refused him. The sarcasm was nearly poetry. In the tranquility of my new apartment, I was eating dinner when Mark's last call came. My morning-filed divorce papers were spread out on the coffee table. "Please, Jen," he pleaded. "The house and my family are gone. It was my fault. We have the option to begin again later on. I have taken note of this. In my cozy, low-key apartment, I took stock of my surroundings. I had left my laptop on my desk. The spot where I had set my coffee mug remained unchanged. Nothing scribbled on the walls, tracked into the floorboards, or made a mess in the kitchen." "On one point, you're correct, Mark," I whispered. "Everything was taken away from you. However, it was your own decisions that led to its loss. When we were married, you always put your family first. You did it again and again, ignoring my emotions. You stood by silently every time they treated me disrespectfully. I can change. I've already taken the necessary steps to end our marriage," I abruptly interrupted. "And no, we will not be discussing this. The real you and the value you place on me were laid bare by your actions. This is a gift to you. Never again will I squander time wondering." His number was blocked, and I ended the call. The sun was sinking outside my window, casting a kaleidoscope of vibrant pinks and oranges across the sky. A new manuscript was on my desk, ready for my review. Thankfully, my phone stayed silent. Occasionally, I wonder what my grandma would say if she could see me today. She insisted that love, respect, and loyalty are more important than blood when it comes to defining family. Obviously, she was correct, as was her normal. Even if Mark was so harsh as to point out that I am an orphan, I have come to realize something crucial. Being alone does not mean that you are lonely. The family you're born into or married into might not always be the best choice. There are moments when you must rescue yourself, and I did it precisely.